This is by far one of my favorite things to talk about because it has been such an important skill to master over the last 8 years of my life. And that's being able to say no to people, being able to say no to things that are not aligned with me, that do not excite me, that I just simply don't want to do. And it doesn't need an explanation other than my gut is telling me I don't want to do this, so I'm going to say no. But there have been times in my life where I didn't, and I would people please, and I would feel guilty, and I would feel FOMO, so I would say yes, 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 and it would lead me to feeling overwhelmed and burnt out and not enough time to prioritize the things that are important to me, and it's just chaos. So being able to get to the other side and being able to live in a reality where I don't say yes to things that I don't want to do, it has created so much peace in my life because I'm only doing the things I want to do. I'm never allowing myself to stretch myself thin. And I feel like there's an abundance of time because it's never being wasted on the wrong things. When I say yes to one thing, that means I'm saying no to everything else. And that's what I keep in mind constantly. Me carving out time to record this podcast right now means I'm saying no to everything else that I could potentially be doing, writing a book, making a short form content, having a coaching call, etc. But I've determined that this is so important that I'm going to create the time for it because I want to do it. And if I didn't want to do it or I didn't find the value in it, I would just stop doing it. So keeping that kind of like as the frame when I'm making decisions of what am I saying yes to, what am I saying no to, it helps me because I understand there's an opportunity cost to every single time that I say yes to something. And I learned this all the way back driving Uber full time. Every time I wasn't driving Uber, I was essentially losing out on money that I could have made. And so it helped me become extremely intentional with what I was saying yes to, which has rippled into the reality that I live in today. And shout out to Uber because I never realized during those moments how important those skill sets were that I was learning. So I'm always optimizing my life to have more time for building my business, for my well-being, for my relationships, my life experiences, anything that is important to me. I'm always optimizing for more time to be more effective, to be more efficient, to have an abundance of time for all these aspects of my life. And if I'm living from a place of saying yes to things I don't want to do, that's pulling away time from these important things in my life, which leads me to having less time for them, which leads them to being neglected. So that is what helps and has encouraged me to keep honing in on this skill. Now, I want you to take a moment as we get into this episode today. I want you to think back on just the last 30 days alone. How many things did you say yes to that you immediately regret? You got invited to do X. You knew you didn't want to do it, but you felt bad. So you said, yes, I'm down. You are counting the days leading up to that moment, to that thing. The day comes, you know it's on your schedule. You don't want to do it, but you know it's coming. You do it. Then after the fact, you're just disappointed and you feel like it was a waste of time. The goal is to eliminate that, right? I haven't allowed that to be my reality in a few years because once again, if it's not something I want to do, I don't do it. It can seem as selfish, but you need to be selfish. I need to be selfish with my time, my energy, my attention. And so I just simply say no. So think about that for yourself. In the last 30 days, how many times have you committed to things you don't want to do? And what would the flip side look like? How much better would you feel? How much more time would you have? Where could you put that time, right? That's going to inspire you. That's going to motivate you to finally start creating these boundaries and to finally have the confidence and comfortability to say no to things you don't want to do. And I think what really helped kind of get me to really hone in on this skill is realizing what was the hidden cost of me saying yes. It wasn't just me saying yes, right? There's more to it. There's my time, my energy, my attention. There's going to be missed opportunities by me saying yes to this one thing. Could have been doing a million other things. There's potential stress that comes from saying yes. There's the work quality that could suffer if I'm carving out time for something that's outside of work during my working hours. My well-being may get neglected. There might be money costs. So it's always more than just saying yes. You got to dig deeper. You got to really ask yourself, what's underneath the hood of me saying yes to this thing, or what's underneath of me not being able to say no. So let's think of this example. It's never just a 1 hour coffee, right? It's the driving and commuting to the coffee shop takes 20 minutes. Then we're there for an hour. Then we have to drive back another 20 minutes. And then it takes 20 minutes to pick up where you left off. So that quote unquote 1 hour coffee just took up 2 hours of your day. Now, in the short term, not a big deal, right? It's just 2 hours. It's all good. The problem is if we do the math on how much time that adds up over a week, over a month, over a year, it's probably going to scare both you and I how much time could be left on the table. Now, I'm not saying you can't carve out time for coffee with friends, or you can't carve out time for your well-being because it's costing you time. It's about being intentional and recognizing, are these things that are value add, things that we enjoy, things that are giving us energy, or are they taking away? We want to keep carving out time for the value adds, the energy adds, the things that make us feel our best self, that bring us fulfillment and happiness. Yes, keep carving out time for those things, but we want to stop carving out time for the things that are pulling our energy, pulling us off track, or just not in alignment with who we are currently. Maybe they're aligned with who we used to be, but it's not who we want to be or who the person is that we're trying to evolve to. So, why is it important to learn to say no? Because if you don't, you're going to spend your entire life being pulled in every direction the world, the universe wants to pull you in. Had I not learned how to say no, that would be me. I would be saying yes to every invite. I would feel terrible saying no to people if they wanted to catch up. I would give people my time, and I wouldn't be able to turn my skill sets, my experience into my business. It would lead me to a very bad place. So it's incredibly important that I learned how to say no so that I could start to create boundaries and start stepping into the life that I wanted for myself, rather than wondering why I wasn't there quite yet. How did I get comfortable with saying no? I think, like anything, the more repetition, the easier it gets. Just like when you're starting in the gym, if you're doing bicep curls, that first set, it's going to be really tough if you haven't lifted weights in months. But by week 2, week 3, week 4, it gets easier with time. So for me, the more consistent I was at saying no, the easier it got. But just like I said earlier, what really made it easier for me to start saying no was understanding, what am I actually losing out from saying yes to this thing? Was I willing to sacrifice my time, my energy, my attention, my money, my well-being, stress, etc.? No. And so I was done with that version of me. I didn't want to have this guilt of, you got to go do this thing because you said yes, but you don't even want to do it. I just wanted to eliminate all that chatter in my mind. And I wanted to be and live in a place where it never happened. And it doesn't happen, because if it does, I eliminate it. I pass on it, or I get it off my calendar. It just is not part of my reality anymore. And I got inspired to even record this episode today because it's a common theme that I see in every single client that I work with. I'm coaching them on how to start saying no to people, how to start creating boundaries for themselves, and how to step into a life design that is fully aligned with them. Full stop. They don't need to explain to others. So the comfortability comes from consistently saying no. But here's the key. What's the best way to deliver a no to someone? In short, be short. You don't owe anyone an explanation. I don't need to tell someone why I can't make it to the dinner. They may ask, but I don't have to give them a reason. Just the same way, yesterday I got a text response from a brand partner that I was kind of working through some conversations with, and they sent me a very thorough explanation as to why they were not going to move forward. And I just responded saying, totally understand, all good. Like you don't need to explain yourself. I trust that you're making the best decision for yourself. And so That's all. I don't need to hear the reasons. When you understand how important boundaries are and you start setting them for yourselves, when it happens to you and someone sets a boundary on you, you just respect it. I always tip my hat, my imaginary hat, to people when I see them set a boundary with me, because I just respect it. I may not like it. I may be uncomfortable. I may be annoyed. I may be disappointed that the brand partnership isn't moving forward, which was going to make me money, but I get it. I respect it. I'm all good. I don't need the explanation. So I think the key is being short, simple, and sweet. Just say no. Like, if that's too hard to say no, not in alignment, I find it just really easy to just say, timing doesn't work, but thanks for the invite, or just being direct and honest with people. I think more often than not, if it's not something I want to do, I always use timing as the scapegoat, or not in alignment with my priorities. That's it. Like, thanks for the invite to this dinner. Timing doesn't work out well for me, but I hope it's a great time. Timing doesn't work out well for me could mean a million different things. You're already busy. Could mean just based on the timing of where you're at in your life right now, it doesn't work. That's what I use. I just say timing doesn't work for me. Thanks for the invite. And that's it. So it's just get right to the point. If it's over the phone, if it's via text, if it's via email, don't come up with some major explanation. That's what I found. I just go straight to the point. How does FOMO impact my ability to say no? I think there was and have been times in my life where FOMO would kick in. In reality, FOMO was my ability to not understand that there's an abundance in this world at a high level. There's abundance of social experiences and things happening in any single moment. There's an abundance of money in this world. There's abundance of opportunity, et cetera, right? So old version of me would feel FOMO if I was going to say no to the birthday party for Chad. But the current version of me is recognizing there's always going to be something. There's always going to be a concert. There's always going to be a getaway weekend. There's always going to be a retreat. There's always going to be a day event. There's always going to be a dinner party. There's always going to be more. And it's literally impossible for me to be at every single thing without burning myself out, spending a lot of money, and dedicating all of my time and energy and attention to doing these things, to fulfilling these activities. So when I accepted that, it gave me so much more peace, because I started to see abundance and recognizing I can't do everything. So I'm going to be really intentional with the few things I say yes to. And that's what's helped me, is being really intentional with what am I saying yes to, and recognizing there are going to be a lot more things I say no to because I don't have the time or energy to do it all. There's always phases. There might be phases like currently I'm much more in a community building phase here in Austin. So I say yes to a lot more community things. Whereas 5 months ago, I was saying no to a lot more because I was focused on building my business right after I quit my full-time career. So FOMO is inevitable. As in there's always going to be more things happening, but it's on me to recognize that of course there's going to be so many things happening, but I can't do it all. So I'm going to be really intentional with what I say yes to, and I'm just going to accept that if I can't make it to that event and I see everyone had a great time, well, good for them. I'll be at the next one. Or, instead of saying yes to that thing, I have something else on my calendar 3 days from now, and I know that's going to be just as great. How do I communicate my boundaries to others? I'm usually just pretty straightforward and direct to people. I don't go out of my way and like, hey, everyone, this is my new boundaries for the next 90 days, unless they see it on social media content. I don't go out of my way to necessarily set these boundaries. But for instance, if I get invited to a dinner party that's at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday and I like to be in bed by 9:30, I may respond and just say, hey, timing, once again, back to timing. Timing doesn't work for me, but I hope you guys and gals have a great time. Or I believe there was recently, I was working with someone on a coffee meetup, and I think that it was supposed to be during the week, timing didn't work for me because I'm working usually at 11 a.m. So I asked for the weekend and that worked. But ultimately, it's just communicating what works best for me, right? People are going to play by their own rules, by their own playbooks, unless I give them the rules to play by for myself. I'm not saying they have to operate and live their life like me, but I can always tell them, hey, this doesn't work for me. And I'm not going to feel bad because I'm always doing what is in my best interest, what is best for me. So sometimes that's all it takes is just a communication of, hey, this doesn't work for me, but does this work instead? And that goes a long way. How do I decide what to say yes or no to? So I said earlier, I kind of have this system built, this internal system where is this something that is an absolute yes or is it a no? So I'm very mindful about how many community events am I saying yes to in a week? How much time am I working? What am I spending my weekends doing? So for example, I was setting up that coffee meetup in a couple weeks, and I originally was thinking of offering, why don't we do something in the evening? We could do like a walk around here, Lady Bird Lake here in Austin. And I looked at my calendar and I saw I'm busy Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, which meant I could either do Monday or Friday with this guy. And I knew that would be a lot for me. It'd be really overwhelming. So I just decided to, instead of saying no to doing anything then, I just said, hey, why don't we do this on the weekend? So it's really just a system of me asking myself, what is in the best interest of me and what is my priorities? What's going to fill me up? What do I need in this time, in this moment? And seasons of life change. My goals, my priorities, my interests change. And when they do, I try to listen to that. So every person is going through a different season. You got to ask yourself, what is in alignment with me and what do I want to say yes to? And I think that's what makes it easier to know what to say yes to, what to say no to. Is it value add? Is it giving me energy? Is this something that really excites me? Or part B is, am I overcommitted for this week? Maybe I should say no. And yes, there may be some ounce of FOMO, but guess what? If you know you've overcommitted yourself, it's better for you to protect your well-being and your peace instead of forcing yourself to say yes and be overwhelmed the entire time you're there because you've been so busy. How do I handle the guilt that sometimes comes with saying no? I think with time and consistency of saying no, I no longer feel guilty because if I don't prioritize myself, my well-being, my energy, my attention, my money, nobody else is going to do it for me. So I am not saying no to people because I think I'm Mr. Cool Guy and I'm just going to say no. I'm doing it to protect my own peace, my own energy, my own attention. So I don't feel guilty saying no to people because I'm doing what is in the best interest of me. And when I look at it from that frame, I don't feel bad about it. Are there moments that maybe I feel an ounce of like, oh, this is unfortunate? Yes. The same way I had to turn away a really close friend's wedding that was just 2 weeks after we had moved to Austin, I felt a little bad. But at the same time, I knew it was in the best interest of me to not commute all the way halfway across the country to be there, to be present, when I knew in my mind I'd be so overwhelmed having just moved to a brand new city. So as long as I'm coming back to how is this benefiting me, it makes it easier for me to not feel guilty. The guilt comes when I'm worried about how are other people going to feel. And if I prioritize how other people are going to feel, that's what's going to lead me to feeling burnt out. That's what's going to lead me to feeling resentment. That's what's going to lead me to saying yes to everything. And so that's completely changed the frame of why I don't feel guilty prioritizing what I need in this moment. What are the long-term benefits of consistently saying no to things that don't align with my goals? The beauty is I just create, and I keep saying some of these words throughout this episode because it's so true. It helps me create more time, energy, attention, money, resources, focus to putting it into the things that really I value, that are important in my life right now. What gives me so much peace at the end of every day, at the end of every week, is when I look back on the day or the week, is I know my time is being spent so intentionally that I could not work harder. I could not create more time for my relationships, for my community, for my well-being, because I'm already capping it. Yes, could I do a 2-hour workout instead of a 1-hour workout? Could I go to 3 community events instead of 2? Yes, but I know what my ceilings are for these things, and I'm at a ceiling for every single thing. I don't need to go above and beyond. And so the benefit of saying no to things that don't align with me is I'm always operating from a place of having plenty of time for my priorities and having plenty of time to rest, recover, and recharge. And that to me feels incredible. How do I encourage and support others to start saying no? I mentioned earlier in this podcast how, some of my clients, this is one of the biggest common themes that I work through with a lot of them is getting better at saying no, not only within their businesses, but also in their personal life. And the best thing that I can do to encourage and support them is asking them, what are their priorities in their life right now? And getting very clear on that. And then using that as kind of like this place where anytime they get invited to something, they can ask themselves, does this ladder up to any of my priorities? Is this in alignment with my goals? Is this getting me to the place where I want to be? And if no, they probably should say no to it. Or even if it is heading towards the life they want for themselves, if it doesn't feel in alignment, then just say no. So it's really just about helping others get really clear on what their priorities are and being able to say no to things that either don't align with those priorities or that just don't align with them. And that takes time and effort. But you have to be aware of what your priorities are and also what are the real costs of you not being able to say no to these people. Are there any tools or techniques that help me decide when to say no? The only technique is understanding the priorities. Understanding what are your priorities in this very moment, and then being able to make a decision based on that. That's really the technique or the tool that I would encourage all of you to take time and create as your priorities. And the things you're saying yes to, do they ladder up to any of these priorities and goals? And if they don't, that's okay. But you have to understand that then you're dedicating time and energy to someone that may not be helping you to get to where you want to be, which is then going to take you longer time to get there. It's distracting you. How has my ability to say no evolved over time? I think the biggest thing is just the consistency. It's so much easier for me to listen to my internal gut and make a decision based on that immediately instead of overthinking it. It may have taken me a little bit longer time to say no in the past, but now it's like automatic. And I think just previously I would think I'd have to come up with an excuse and be very clear with the individual of why I'm saying no. And now I'm just very respectful but straight to the point. And it just has put me in a very great spot where I really am not afraid to say no to people anymore. And I'm very gentle, respectful when communicating the no to them. But I do what is in the best interest of me, because if I don't, nobody else is there to watch over me. And I'm selfish about it. And I would credit the success, the life that I created for myself. It's only been possible for a lot of different reasons, but one of the main pillars has been being able to say no to the things that are either distractions, are pulling me off track, or not aligned with me, or are just not in alignment with the goals and priorities that I have for myself. So, with all of that in mind, my challenge for you is this. I want you to look at your upcoming commitments. Could be the next week, next month, whatever. I want you to look at each thing you've committed to and be honest with yourself of, is this in alignment with me or is it not? Am I excited to do this or am I not? Is this giving me energy or is it not? And I want you to start removing things from your calendar that are not in alignment with you. That could also be with business. Are you saying yes to too many things because you want to be overachiever? But is that causing you stress? Is that causing you overwhelm? Do you feel like there's so much anxiety in your day because you're trying to juggle too many things? Why not slow things down? Why not focus on 1 to 2 things rather than 4 to 5 things? You can do everything. You just can't do it all at once. So why not give yourself this piece of doing the small things, small steps, right? Those 1 to 2 things, and then adding in new things, right? So all that to say, I want you to audit. What have you committed yourself to? What are you not excited about? What can you back yourself out of, right? If you have time to get yourself out of it, do it. And then from this moment moving forward, I would challenge and encourage you to create those priorities for yourself and ask yourself, when invited or when something gets presented to you, an opportunity, experience, an invite, etc., is this in alignment with my priorities? Does this interest me? If no, I'm going to pass on it and come up with a very 1-sentence, hey, this is in alignment with my priorities, but thanks for the invite, or hey, timing doesn't work, thanks for the invite. And on the other side, you're going to feel so much more peace, and you're going to have so much more time to continue designing and creating the life that you want for yourself. Thank you for tuning in today's podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please screenshot this episode on whatever platform you're listening in on. Post it to your Instagram story. Tag me at Babe. That's B-O, 3 B's, 4 A's, and a Y. Share this podcast in your IG story. Let me know, what was the biggest takeaway? How did this episode change your perspective? You may have someone in your community that needs encouragement with being able to say no. And if they see you post this podcast, hopefully they give it a listen, and hopefully it positively impacts them too. So please share it out. It means the world. And thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you guys and gals on the next one. It's the Bearded Man Podcast.